Yeah. Dennis,
Yeah.
how you doing, my friend?
Oh, better now.
Another hour of
Better
happy.
now. Better now with a belly laugh.
Yes.
So,
yes. I think today I want to lean to you to shed some light on your week, but later you can tell us about that.
I'll think about it. I'll just have to square it up with
All right.
my day.
You give us the square root later. What are you going to say about COVID?
Well, here we are. What's to say?
Still breathing.
Trump talked about flu again. There are 35,000. There could be 100. Could be 100.
Well, he didn't talk about flu again. It's in the news that he was calling it the flu, right?
No, it was the speech he gave in North Carolina.
Oh, fuck, really?
He talked about the flu again and said that 35,000 people die every year from the flu. Who knew that? Everybody but you, apparently. And he said it could be as low as 27. It could be as high as 100. And as far as COVID-19 goes, there may have been none.
Yeah.
And it's the day that the Woodward book here. Did you?
I've heard about this. Yes.
Oh my God! So people are saying, like I've said so many times before, this is it. You never get away with this.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
My favorite news from this week is that, like, Trump is always saying I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it and nothing would happen to me. And at this point, it's pretty much true, because this week he went and stepped on and jumped around on what I would call the third rail of politics, which is shitting on the military. Right? He is quoted with multiple sources of saying that, and I totally believe that he thinks this way. Why would I risk my life for my country? What sort of idiot would do that? What a loser! Like, you deserve to die if you're that stupid.
Loser. And the thing is that people are saying is it's not anything other than he can't understand it.
Exactly.
It's not that he doesn't believe it. It's not that he's against it. It's just that he can't understand it. It makes no sense to him. And,
why would you risk your life for anyone other than yourself?
My God.
It's
yeah, right.
Like you care about someone.
So then the Woodward book comes out, and it talks about Black Lives Matter, where Woodward says those of us who are white privileged men, we've got to walk out of the cave we've lived in all of our life and understand in a way we never had before the pain and the grief of what it means to be black in America.
Amen. And
we have to really work at that. And Trump interrupts him and says, oh, wow, you really drank the Kool-Aid. No, I don't feel that way at all.
Right. That would require effort. And what's that word again? Empathy.
Empathy.
That is the defining word of our president. Is no one that I've ever met has zero empathy. Like, they say that's what psychopathy is and serial killers and what, yes. And they just pretend to they learn when they're young to act as if they have empathy, but they really don't.
How to mimic it.
But holy crap, Trump never even learned that. It's like there's just 0.00000 empathy. It's just
he's the shallowest man alive. Man anybody has ever known of.
This morning,
he is the shallowest person anybody has ever known of.
Yes.
Not just in power.
No.
I don't mean just the people in power.
Every human ever could live.
Life.
Yes.
Yes.
And so this morning, this is how fucking shallow and what a little baby child he is. This morning, in September 2020, he tweeted, Obama really had it easy going up against a loser like Mitt Romney who doesn't know anything about politics or anything. Obama's lucky he didn't have to go against someone that knew how to win. What are you fucking... That's 8 years ago. You're so jealous of your predecessor that you're talking about 8 years ago because you're thinking about what it means the last time someone won re-election, that you're thinking, oh, is that a compliment to Joe Biden that he's worried about this? It sounds like... It's like, what's a infant...
There's a great article in The Guardian today that, like a lot of the Lincoln Project's commercials, is probably written for an audience of one, and everybody else can just enjoy and observe it. But what he said was, he quoted asshole orange man going on the fucking attack on Obama and facted out, gave the facts. And, for example, said once that nobody has more followers on Twitter than me. And that's not true, of course.
Of course it isn't.
He's got a lot, but there's many that are more. And he said, and I'm the number one this or that in this. And the fact is, this is the point, is that he's at 35 million and Obama's at like 120 million.
Of followers.
And... Yeah. Of followers, yes. Sure. And the back and forth about Obama happens in this article 3 times. That's not true. Obama The facts on Obama was much higher, was much better, was played less.
Insecurity. It's dude.
Yes, but he's a mental case. And so this is the biggest test of our democracy since the Civil War. And once again, we're facing a similar foe in that it's a Confederate general. It's a Confederate general. I'll bet you he's got fucking underwear that's got the fucking Confederate flag on it.
Okay, so the Civil War, here I go, briefly glancing at the third rail. The Civil War, like the South was fighting for their way of life that had been super comfortable because they didn't have to do any manual labor because they had slaves.
Not exactly true. Close enough.
And they were upset because the North wanted to prohibit that structure,
who are you to
that
tell us
economic
what to do?
structure. And it was
we're independent of that.
right. And we can do whatever we want. And that there are no parallels. I don't see the parallels between that and now. What I see now is that yes, a lot of the Trump supporters are racist, and yes, if there was a referendum of can we put all the black people back in chains, a lot of them would vote yes. But this is so much further removed. It feels.
So my point is this: in the first instance, number one, the life of a slave was only worth a certain amount of money, and it wasn't very much. And now, this Confederacy, the New Age Confederacy, the Trump Confederacy, is saying, so you know what? People die. People who live in those democratic cities die because they're just violent places to live. They shouldn't live there. And it's the same equivalency of saying back in the days of slavery, they very well have said, no, you don't understand. Black lives don't matter. Not that much. Some, it all depends. And that's what Trump is professing. So there's a commonality of some principles, not to the nth degree, but certainly enough that it's the similar sense of attitude of independence, and you can't tell me. And it's also this gullibility, proxy for uneducated. And so there are these parallels. The magnitude of it, certainly not so much, because that is the event in American history that more defined us as a country. This is more about not letting that happen again through the electoral process and avoiding a war. Trump is fomenting an armed uprising of the Confederate. That's what he's doing. His Confederacy.
Okay, walk me through this. Say his Confederacy has an armed uprising and they win. What does America look like?
Trump gets another term.
Okay. And he gets richer because
he's able for life.
Which again,
was a war,
I so doubt.
But they wouldn't win. They can't win.
We have conflicting reports that some people close to him, like Michael Cohen, I read today, says that Trump is not kidding when he's talking about having more than 2 terms. But then other people who I guess are just observing as I am from the outside, it really looks like he doesn't want to be president, and he never wanted to, and it just happened to make his name big. But if you never wanted that job, and it feels like work, and you can't really have rallies anymore, and the crooked media hates you, why do you want that? Why do you want that for yourself?
Doesn't. That's why he did the Woodward interview.
Yeah, okay, that's my point, though. You can't hold those two conflicting views in your head of he doesn't want to be president, and also he wants to be president for life. It's like that.
It's his mind.
He can hold conflicting views.
A plan A or a plan B or this option or that option. But I don't want to be president. I just want to start my own party, run my own television network.
That's what he wants. He wants viewers.
And that's what I'm going to try for. Now, look, if as that happens, this violence that I fomented, if that happens, to turn it into a violent thing where there's guns and gunshots and they'd actually take over, well, if Q-Anon is involved, which they would have to be because they got to pull all those right-wing numbers together. So what Q-Anon wants is to me to be is they think I'm the Messiah. So that's not all bad. I don't know that'll happen any more than I thought I'd ever be fucking president. All I wanted to do was fucking be the most famous brand name in the world.
Put my name on
and
shit.
Go international based on and get the Moscow Tower finally funded with the oligarchs gave money. The thing is that those of us who follow this incessantly, almost obsessively, know that the facts will show, without a doubt, that the oligarchs, with Putin's encouragement and or permission, bailed Trump out of the sale of his property down in Florida for a cool extra $500 million more than it was worth.
Sure.
And there was incriminating tapes of a sexual nature in a hotel that he frequented where there are eyewitnesses that say they saw him in Moscow hotels with whores. So these two things are there.
Yeah,
and in his taxes, he lied. And so he knows this. So when you know that he knows that we know, and that soon the whole world will know, what do you think he's doing? He's trying to get this cult following as a moneymaker while he's fighting the possibility of criminal activity, which he has now extended into some up-teen number of court cases where he's suing for invalid mail-in voting, for this, that, and the other. He's already taken to the courts. He's going to file 50 lawsuits so that at least the question of his presidency is working its way through the courts, notwithstanding the fact that on January 20th, he's done, no matter what. But his standing in court is going to be, well,
it's going to take 20 years.
There's enough we don't know. So you can't indict a president.
Okay, but how do you square that circle of he doesn't want to be president, but some people say he wants to be president for life? One of those is false. It's a contradiction.
No, that's not necessarily true. That's a contradiction. And so what? You can't imagine Donald Trump having contradictory ideas and emotions?
No, I can imagine him having that.
He's a mental health case.
Yeah,
he's got all sorts of that. He's probably thinking one thing one minute, one thing the next minute, and sometimes he's on this track and sometimes he's on another track. He doesn't sleep well, he doesn't eat well. His brain doesn't get a lot of oxygen. He is not a smart man. He's an idiot savant.
That is
if he's
true.
anything.
Yes.
If it's anything, and it's about and it's an idiot savant, what can he do? He can command a loyalty
entertain
of 32,
a loyalty.
35% of the American people. That's his idiot savant.
Which, like I said a couple episodes ago, that those are such, because you were saying, oh, it'll be a dynasty, and once he's a dictator, he will have his kids come in. But I don't think there's anyone else like him that, I'm sure statistically there will be someone somewhere, but his particular combination of being a total dolt and uncaring of what, capital T truth is, and just being able to please people in a way, like he has so much charisma, and that's all he has.
He has a charisma which is only attractive to a minority of the people. But his charisma,
okay, that's not entirely true.
The undivided attention of the journalist.
He's entertaining.
Journalists in the world.
He's entertaining to us. Yes. We watch him, and we are like, "Wow, look at this guy!
What a buffoon!"
And then we tune in the next day, and we watch him again, and we say the same thing.
Right.
And he's perfectly calibrated to get those viewer numbers that are his most important metric, because he will say the most outrageous things that please 30% of us and outrage the other 70% of us, and can't look away.
30. At least outrage another 35%.
Right. But we're hoping none of us can look away.
45.
None of us can look away. It's just you're watching a train wreck. We're all rubbernecking at the accident on the side of the road.
Did you see the cartoons I sent you with Trump in wild, flaming cartoon art as Hannibal Lecter and being wheeled out on a fucking dolly?
I think so, yeah.
Standing up with a mask on with his orange hair like on fire out of the top of his helmet, and he's being introduced as the president of the United States, and everybody in the fucking place is running away because they're so scared.
That is exactly how we feel. That is how we feel as woke liberal folk.
Yeah. How many times have you seen Silence of the Lambs?
So, Dennis, let's change the subject. This is boring and repetitive. Oh man, talk about boring and repetitive. I'm so fucking tired of talking to everyone I meet on the street about fucking COVID. That's all anyone wants to talk about. It's, I heard there were so many new cases over here and there were this many cases over there. And what do you think about the future? And it's just the same conversation over and over and over and over again. And I just get so bored. But anyway, Dennis.
That you can get out and get around and talk to people.
Tell me about your projects this week.
Oh my God.
What have you been doing?
Well,
I would like you to shed some light on your projects.
Project of the week of the month is the lean-to shed, a shed affixed to my
Hold on. Stop.
Existing.
Define lean-to.
Lean-to simply means that it is affixed to the side of it. So under the gable of the sloped roof of my garage, I'm putting another roof, and that roof is the roof of a shed. And in order to lay that roof, the first thing I do is I put in a manner of speaking, the first major construction piece I do, is I nail a header to the building. It's a big 2x12 with big giant fucking spiky drill and nails that drill into the existing studs of the garage. That header then accepts the weight of the rafters of the shed. And so it is, in fact, leaning on the existing structure, using the existing structure's outside wall as its inside wall. Since it's affixed to a building that's much bigger and very strong, you start out with a very sturdy foundation. So one of the big challenges is with the pictures I sent you was how do you square your shed to the building?
Okay, wait, let's stop here.
Because
so lean-to means that you're using what was an external wall as one of the 4 walls of a new structure.
Yes, the main wall and the first wall, because it's already there.
Right.
Now you have to strip it of its shingles, which I took off, wooden pine shingles that were put on in 1910 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And they're ancient, and they've been preserved, and saved most of them and stacked them and took the nails out of them and set them aside. And then with the shingles off, all the way to the bare wood, I put some bug spray on it and then put some tar paper on it, and then had to put 3 pieces of plywood on it. Pieces of plywood are 4 feet by 8 feet, 1/2 inch. Easy enough to pick up, not so easy to maneuver on a ladder.
Okay, so so this was an external wall, and you're turning it into an internal wall, correct?
Correct. And the rule is...
And are you putting a doorway in it?
Internal walls have to have plywood. No, I'm actually not, because
You're just using it as a load bearing.
No, not because of that so much. The original building already has 2 entrances. It has an entrance on the same side as the lean-to shed in the back, and it also has an entrance in the front. We don't need another entrance. And entrances, by the way, take up a tremendous amount of square feet for storage and shelving, and it's a big space.
Right.
And it's got to be open, and you can't trip on stuff on the side of it.
Wait, is your new structure, you had the main wall, and you're building 3 other walls on it, or just 2 others?
3.
Okay, so 3. There will be a doorway within those 3 walls to get to the new area.
So here's an interesting thing that I had to figure out, and just tell me if your eyes glaze over. But imagine
We're still talking about
the height of the gable in my existing roof.
Hold on, I need a definition. Gable?
It's look at a gable. It's a peaked, triangle-looking thing.
A gable, part of a wall that encloses the end of a pitched roof. Okay.
So the pitch of a roof is a slope, and it's defined as a inch drop per foot. So if you've got a 112 slope, that means that every 12 inches, the slope of the roof is lower 1 inch. 312 is 3 inches. A 4/12 is 4 inches. So
algebra. Yep.
There's code, a construction code, and a construction code for a carport with a shingle roof is it has to be 412. That's a pretty steep peak. You're putting your hands together like kids do to show a house. Here's the church, here's the steeple, open the door, here's all the people, that kind of thing. Yes. That pitch that you're showing there is a typical pitch, and it's 412.
Okay.
So if you increase that pitch, right, or decrease the pitch, stop there.
If you decrease the pitch,
is,
you talk a lot lower like this, especially in podcasting. But anyway, continue.
Here's the thing.
You're decreasing the volume, not the pitch. You have to talk really low like this to decrease the pitch. Or you can talk really like this if it's a really high pitch. Anyway, continue.
Whoa. Wow.
Like a fastball pitch.
Yeah, it was like, whoa.
And the players are taking the pitch right now. Okay.
So when you put a roof underneath the other roof, if you keep the same pitch, the same angle, you can imagine that before too long, your roof, if you keep expanding it down toward the ground, at some point hits the ground. That isn't going to give you much room. It's going to give you like only 5 feet because it hits the ground so quick.
Indeed,
you got to put a pole there to hold the roof up.
Not a pole.
So that means you change the pitch. You lower the pitch. So instead of a 412, I'm doing a 112.
Oh,
so it goes like a steep pitch, and then I go to, which means that at the back end of that 10-foot wall, I have a post, and that's a corner post. Obviously, it's got 4.
Clearly,
4
everyone listening is visualizing this perfectly, like I am.
Must be.
I can see it.
The code is that from the floor to the top of the wall of that back wall, where your slope ends, if you're going to put a door there, you have to have 6'8" underneath a 2x12, which means that it's a 7'8" wall.
As a 6-foot
And if
person,
you put
I very much agree with this code.
and that means that pitch on the roof is almost flat.
Whoa. It's almost no
And
pitch
if
at
it's
all.
almost flat, water and snow's the big one, melting snow will fall off the garage roof, slide down, and instead of sliding off the tin roof that I'm putting on, it'll stay there. But here's the thing about tin, that it is so slippery, it's so absorbent to heat, particularly when you use galvanized or white, and I'm using galvanized, that it grabs the heat, that the pitch that you need for most snow is only 212. Mine is a little bit less than that, but I'm building it quite structurally sound.
So hold on,
that's
I
all
have a
had
question.
to figure out.
I have a question. So your roof is metal, right? And it's at such a low pitch, a low angle, that the snow is going to just sit there.
It's going to slide. On my roof or a hypothetical roof? A flat roof, it'll sit there.
Okay, no, I was
Everything
concerned
else-
that it wasn't that it was too flat, that it was going to be a problem. And I
No,
thought
no,
maybe
no,
you could heat up the room or something to heat up the metal, and then the snow would glide off on a layer of water.
Yeah. And in fact, there certainly will be a heat source in there when I'm working out there, without a doubt. Although it's a gardening shed, so I'm not much in there. In the winter, it not only is it got all my gardening, my pots and garden equipment and tools and planting gear and big cases to hold dirt and all that stuff. But what happens in the winter is that I also move all the lawn furniture in there and close it up.
Right.
Because it's closed. It's winter, and I'm not gardening. And my main one-car garage, which I call a shed as well, it's a big one-car shed, has actually got pretty steep pitch. So I was able to put lofts, 2 different lofts in it that are over 8 feet off the floor, 2 feet above your head, and expanse of 4 feet. That's a lot of shelf space. 18-foot wide.
Because I have never really lived in a snowy landscape.
Snowy. Oh, wait.
And I know that at least one of our listeners lives above the Arctic Circle, and he knows all about that lifestyle. It never occurred to me in planning, not that I do a lot of planning of construction, that snow sliding off your roof was such an important thing. Because here in Spain, all of our roofs are terracotta, this red stuff
overlapping terracotta tile, clay baked,
which I guess I'm never really sure why different countries do things differently when it comes to windows or whatever. But so here, I guess red is going. No, see, it's the wrong color. That's
because it's orange.
But if you wanted something to be cooler in a lot of sun, you would make it bluer, because the blue light has more energy than the red light.
You make it white, actually.
White, sure, answer. But yeah, white is more correct. But red is going to be absorbing all of the high energy light.
Right. Red's moving toward black.
And reflecting.
Without a doubt. Light blue's moving toward white. But in fact, the galvanized and the white are both superb for that.
I read some article in the past few years about why barns are painted red. And it was one of these cool, it turns out that this is why. And I've since forgotten the reason, but it's related to...
If it's a quiz, I fail.
And so do I. So does the quizmaster.
We'll have to put it in the show notes.
Exactly. But it's about how some sort of oxidation happens, and it was easier to find red as a color than anything else. But anyway, that may or may not be in the show notes, depending on how energetic I feel when I edit this episode. But so how long until you're done with this project?
Oh my God, there's no telling. The first 4 hours I spent was to rip off the tiles, spray it, bug spray, put on the tar paper, and single-handedly, I must say, using fulcrums on 2x4s and bricks to hold the sheet plywood up against the wall. I got it affixed, and decent job. And then today was to lay out the foundation of cinder blocks, 2 different styles, which is into some real interesting detail that I'll bet you've never heard of before, but the bottom line is that to lay the cinder blocks out, you've got to be square to the building.
Yes.
Otherwise, your one wall is going to be 120 inches, and your other one's going to be 118, and then suddenly your building is crooked. Now, there's a certain level of acceptability with crookedness. You're down to a quarter inch or half.
Tell that to the president, am I right?
when you look at it 12 and 20 feet and this and that. And the problem is, of course, that the original building, which was built in 1930, is not square itself. It actually fell off its foundation at one point, and so was crooked. And so one of my earliest repairs was to shore up the existing building so it couldn't shift anymore. And what had happened was that it spread apart at the bottom and it broke a couple of support rafters, which I reattached. So I made it strong as new, but it's not square. So I got to put a square building onto a building that's not squared as much as possible. It's got to be square to the building. So the trick that I learned was, you can imagine if you're drawing on a piece of paper and you want to make a perfect triangle, you'll take out your little triangle piece that you have, your little square, and you'll trace it on your paper. They make those, of course, for carpentry, handheld, that are 12 by 12, and they go as big as 3 by 2. And longer, I've seen them. I've seen them quite big. But this trick is to use a piece of plywood and cut the plywood into a square, and then use that because it gives you the distance you need for such a big thing as a building. And so today it took me I did some other stuff, but it was a good 6 hours today to get that square enough to call it good, and all the bricks put in the position, the big cinder blocks, which are heavier than shit, 16 inches by 8 inches, very heavy.
Right.
To put them all in exactly where they're going to go. So
I've never seen anything so heavy. These are the heaviest cinder blocks ever. Like, what was the thing? Soup cans. He was talking about. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, so soup cans are the heaviest thing.
Last episode.
Yeah.
We talked about soup
anyway.
And I agreed with they're an excellent projectile. But the last bit of
because bricks are too heavy to throw was his point. But these cinder blocks
they're
certainly
harder to hold.
Right.
Than a soup can. That's for sure.
Tell me about it.
But I had to add a space between each of the cinder blocks, 3/8 of an inch wide or so, because that's the width of the concrete I'm going to put in there to glue them together, to hold them together, and still be square to the building and square at the corners. And then the cinder blocks up the middle to hold up my floorboards had to be square. I must have measured 75, 80 times, maybe even 100 times today, again and again, and finally got it pretty damn square and pretty damn straight to the building, which is so fucking weird, because when they laid the concrete pad down, that is what I'm building the shed on, which is lucky for me. It's a really good foundation.
Right.
Big 7-inch, 8-inch concrete slab. They laid it square to the back fence. So there's lines in the concrete every 8 feet,
right? Because
they make concrete squares. The building isn't lined up with the fence behind the house. It's a jumbo by a good 3 feet. The back end is 3 feet back. It's crooked.
My shed's a jumbo.
To the fence.
Yeah.
Because it's a shared driveway, and each house, ours, right next to each other, we share one very wide driveway, then they branch out. So in order to branch out, so you could drive your car in there, they were positioned to be able to take a slight right and drive into, and therefore they were crooked to the back line. So the juxtaposition of the squares of the concrete and the corners of the posts make it look, in fact, like it's crooked. And it's not crooked. It's not crooked at all to the house.
Because you measured 100 times.
Sorry, to the garage. But it's not square to the house.
Like I always say,
so it's
measure 100 times, cut once.
We joked about that today. The other thing I had to do was I stuck a big pole in one of those cinder blocks where, yes, I did, where I thought the end, where the wall would be, where the corner post would be. And then I measured from the high pitch of the roof to the low pitch. Because if you're going horizontal to the building, or vertical to the building, which is horizontal, if you're measuring horizontal to the building, 10 foot, you mark your post 10 feet. But it's a rafter with a pitch. So when you turn that board up, it moves further away from the building. Because it, in fact, picture a board nailed with a screw on a post that moves up and down. And the higher you go to the roof, you know what if you've got a protractor and you set your protractor and it's got a pencil in the end of it and a point in it, and when you swoop that protractor so that you keep it straight, you keep it exactly the same distance.
Yeah, it's called a compass.
Picture a line over there to the left of the bottom of it, and as you move up that, you're moving further away from the vertical line.
Uh-huh.
So the mistake you don't want to make is to say, it's a 10 foot, the wall's 10 feet away from the barn. Okay. Yeah, but that means you have to have an 11-foot hunk of wood to connect the post to the other post.
Okay.
Considering pitch. So that made me move my whole wall up a half a block, which is 8 inches, so that I didn't have to cut all the 2x4s because they come in 10-foot lengths, and I don't want to cut all those 2x4s. So I made it 9/6. So now that's what I did all fucking day. So does it sound like fun? My back is screaming at me.
The worst audio content
ever.
I can imagine of someone talking about
people. I thought people would write us and say,
measuring.
"Oh man, send me the plans, man.
Yeah,
show pictures."
So can I share some of the pictures that you sent?
Oh yeah.
For some reason, you sent me 8 megabyte JPEGs, which is just freaking huge.
I thought there was a problem.
That's I guess
it's a picture.
Yeah, it's a picture, but it's freaking huge. Anyway, I can compress those down for our listener that decides to go to happyhour.fm/075 to look at the show notes. 75. We're 3/4 of the way to 100. That'll be a celebration.
The day.
Because you know how optimistic I was. I started numbering these things at 001. Why would I do that? Because I knew that we were going to get to 3 digits. We're not going to get to 1,000. We're not going to get to 1,000. But I knew that we were going to get to 100.
How long would that take? That'd take 3 years. 1,000.
No. We do this once a week.
If we did it every day.
Thank God we don't do this every day. 1,000 divided by 52
do it every day. There's no
is 19 years. So I feel pretty comfortable with our numbering scheme, starting with that are 3 digits. I think if that becomes a problem, fuck it, we won. I don't know what we won.
Well, I'll be 86. I'll be 86 by then. Hey, what you do? It's just another day in COVID.
Jesus, if we're still in COVID in 19 fucking years, what a disaster. So today, my kid's school had, like at the beginning of every school year, we have these meetings where you go in and all of one particular class really is the way it's normally done. It's divided by class. At a particular time, you go and you meet the teacher and you talk about the school year and blah, blah, blah. And so this year, the principal organized 3 different times today when we could have video conferences with parents and the teachers. And I attended the first one, which was when the teachers were still at school. Like, I think the other 2, the teachers weren't present. And it was such a disaster because there were like 30 people on the call or whatever, and someone didn't have their mic muted, and it was just pure noise, and the principal was like,
why would they do that?
The principal was shouting, "Hey, everybody mute your mic, everybody mute your mic." And it was just the first 15 minutes of it was just figuring out who was making all the fucking noise so that we could talk. And then the next part of it was, let's go around and introduce all of the teachers for all of the grades in the school. And so then they would say, "Okay, Pablo, are you here? Turn on your mic, turn on your video so you can say hi. No, your video. And then Pablo would come on and he'd be like, "Hi, I'm teaching 2nd grade," or whatever. And that was all that he was supposed to say. And then they would go over to the next one, and the next teacher also wasn't prepared and didn't have it took 4 minutes for them to be able to broadcast anything. And it was such a nightmare. I spent the whole time with my hand on my forehead. And then they talked about all the COVID protocols that they were implementing and how they were trying to make everything as safe as possible. And it all sounded great. Like it all made sense. But I've also and they said, and when the kids go out to recess out into the open area, they're told to stay far apart and stuff. But like, I've observed the kids out at recess because the school is next to my house, and they're just all hugging each other and punching and fighting, and or at least the boys are.
Yeah.
And there's just no. You can't control children with rules like this.
You can't, particularly children that have never been regimented other than certain prescribed times of the day, but otherwise we're fully encouraged to run and to shout and to play and to hug and none of that. And that's why it's so lovely to be a child, because that's what you do. And so it's ridiculous, of course, to send them to school.
And some kids naturally obey authority, like I think mine generally do, but other kids don't. Other kids, when I'm around other kids and their parents tell them, "Hey, Johnny, stop doing that," and the kid goes directly to do that one thing, and whereas my kids generally don't. But it's just, you can't, Like, kids are kids, and great that they're kids, but now is a time where we need a tightly regimented set of behaviors. And
when did they give you shit about not sending your kids to school? Before this?
No, they haven't yet. We're still in the first week of school. And
I see.
But when the principal finished and said, "Are there any questions?" possibly ill-advisedly, I said, "I've got a question. How many? What percentage of kids aren't going because their parents don't want their kids to go?" And the answer I got back was very few. There's 3 or 4 families that are doing this out of a school of 500 kids, we'll say, which maybe that's true. Like, they didn't really have the numbers to quote to me, but man, like, every day there's a new case of a new case in a nearby school.
Hear the bulldozer?
Is that the old bulldozer from? Are they still working on your street?
Oh my God, yes.
Still, wow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's
a loud son of a bitch. Yeah. Right.
It's gonna get so much worse. And
here's a question that you might have asked. We're all aware, I'm sure you are, of the data that shows what typically happens in groupings of any kind and what might happen. And so, do you expect that no children will get sick? And the only answer they can say is, we don't know for sure, but no, we don't think that none of them will. Okay, very good. So second question is, so what percentage of children getting sick seems to be like
too much,
low or acceptable to you? Because if you know that some kids are getting sick, then what kind of data are you looking at? Are you thinking that if only 6% of the kids get sick, which would be 6% would be like 15,
right,
20 kids, is that
acceptable?
No, we don't. We can't predict the future, and we don't know. And so,
exactly.
No, this isn't that. It's what's the science is. I have the data right here, and it says that it's fair to say that it's 15%. Therefore, we're looking at 19 or whatever. And,
sure.
And so, second question. So, of every 20 kids that get sick in the world, let's see how many actually die. Wow, not much of a chance of that, actually. It's a pretty small percentage. Let's ratchet, let's look at that, let's look at this. Did you consider if one child dies, that's not acceptable, right? And they'd say, absolutely not, that's not acceptable. If we thought that a child would die, we wouldn't do this. We said, wait a minute, we just had a statistic in front of us that said there's a chance of 1 out of every 1,000.
Right.
And thinking of all the children going to school as a group, let's look at that number. That means that there's 30,000 children across this country, blah, blah, blah. So might one of our 20 be that? And the answer is we don't know, but it might be. So you're willing to take that risk that a child may die. This is true.
Right.
This is factual. This wasn't a decision you had to make so much as a statistical algorithm that you either...
And to force them into saying that, yes, all the schools in the country should go back to school, even if 2 kids die or whatever. Yeah, that would be a hell of a math play. Personally, I'm not worried about my kids as much as their family members.
Kids being...
because that percentage is way higher. There was a story today where a 28-year-old elementary school teacher in South Carolina died from COVID after 3 days after her diagnosis, like that she tested positive. And she had been a teacher for 5 or 6 years. And
this was after they went back to school?
Oh, yeah. Because they went back to school, I would say.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How old? 29?
28.
Here comes the dozer again. He just drove by.
Wow.
Yeah, they're putting they put all the new drains in. They put in new copper piping from the street into our home. They put in a new gas line. They put in a new sewer line. And then they put in a new main line from the water source right up the center of the street. And now they are taking all of the pavement that they ripped up, and they're putting dirt in it, covering up all the ditches they dug, and they've got a huge roller that goes over the top of it, and they're measuring it so that it's exactly flat as can be, 3 inches from the remaining surface of road where there's one lane near me. So there's a drop off of about a foot, a half a foot. That is where they're going to throw asphalt. And that asphalt is going to be 2 inches lower than my road out here in front of my house. Then they're going to come in with a machine that's got a roller on it, and the roller's like bladed, and that is going to scrape off the top 3 inches of the existing road so it's exactly level with the asphalt that they're getting ready to lay now. And with that all scored up and all dug up and level with the asphalt that they just poured, then they're going to lay in a new asphalt road on top of it.
Cool.
And it's going to be brand new.
They told you all this?
New curbs. I'm watching it happen as we speak.
Yeah. But you know the future because you talk to them.
I know the future. I know what the future is. Yes, I talk to the workmen all the time.
Because you came back.
I go out there with my coffee when they're having their coffee and say, "Hey, what's up? Hey, how you doing, man?
What y'all doing?
Right? What you doing? What's the next step? We got 2 more drains to put in, 2 more hydrants, and then we're going to start leveling things out and getting ready." So the winter's coming.
Hold on. So, if you had a thing that you wanted to destroy, like maybe you had a laptop or something that you didn't want anyone to ever read the data on, you could put that under that crunchy roller, and it would just do a job.
The way to do that is it's where they haven't rolled yet, where the dirt is a little soft.
Right.
Is to just dig a little indentation in there about 4 inches deep for your computer.
Right.
And then cover it up so you can't see it. Mark it with a little speck of red paint. I use a hot pink spray paint to mark my corners for my buildings and all the work that I do. Pink.
You put hot paint everywhere.
There's this tool that you hook the can of paint to the bottom of it, and it is a wand that has a trigger on it, so you don't have to bend over to spray the line, the paint line, or the paint mark on the pavement. It's like a gun. And then there's another one, and this one somebody left here for the city, and I just took it. I put it out there for a couple days, see if they would take it. They didn't take it, so I have it. It's that same trigger mechanism in a wand, but it's at the end of a wheel. At the end of it is a wheel. And on the wheel is a counter. On the wheel is a counter. And right all the way down to the bottom of the wheel is where the trigger can is, because it's going to spray your line. But that counter allows you to, in one tool, to go from point A to point B, which is 90 feet this way and 16 feet that way. Right. You take the wheel, it shows you 90 feet, squirt your can, do the next 90 feet. Now, how often do you think I'll need to use that?
Let me tell you, I use one of those about every week, really, to mark my territory in my house of where the children are not allowed to pass.
Don't cross this line.
I say, this is Daddy's area. Stay over there. Yeah, or when they're bad, I paint them into a corner, and I say you have to stay in the corner. But yeah.
So using pink lines would help subdue them, the research shows. That's why Sheriff Joe what's his name? Arapaho from Arizona made his inmates wear pink underwear because there was one piece of science somewhere that claimed that it had a calming effect and whatever. Huh. I can't imagine.
So, Dennis, I asked you earlier what gender reveal parties are, and you were dubious and curious.
I wasn't dubious. I certainly was curious. I'm certainly in the dark, so to speak.
So this is a new phenomenon, I guess maybe within the last 10 years, maybe less, where couples that are having a baby find out whether it's a boy or a girl, or like only one of them finds out, and then they don't tell anyone if it's a boy or a girl, and then they invite all their friends over for the gender reveal party to see if it's a boy or a girl, because this is super important. And they do increasingly outlandish things. At the beginning of this trend, they would, I don't know, maybe fill a closet of your house full of balloons that were pink or balloons that were blue, and then everyone would get together and they'd be like, oh, let's see what it is, and they would open it up and the balloons would fly out and they'd be like, oh, it's a girl or it's a boy. And then it got increasingly crazy where they would do things like they would fill some sort of a balloon with blue or pink powder or something, and maybe they would, like, out in the backyard, they would have the balloon suspended somewhere, and then someone would shoot it with a BB gun or something, and it would explode into that color, and they would be like, oh, now we know. It's such a stupid... As soon as we knew the gender of our kids, we told everyone that we knew, because why fucking wouldn't you? But no, we like the suspense. We like the drama of this.
Any excuse to party.
And
Is that on the upswing during COVID?
No.
Or it's been going on 10 years, you said that.
Yeah. What you don't know about the news is that one of these gender reveal parties that involved pyrotechnics with, pink fireworks or blue fireworks or whatever, started one of the bigger wildfires out in California. And one of these wildfires that has destroyed a couple hundred homes and millions and millions of money in property. All because someone wanted to have this super stupid party where we gave you a Boolean value, a 1 or a 0, basically,
They shot off fireworks and it caught the forest on fire?
Something like that. I don't know the exact details of this particular party, but that's what the news is going around, is that it was a gender reveal party that started at least one of the fires. There's a bunch of fires going on out west. And just, you couldn't come up with a thing that was dumber than that, aside from some doofuses actually intentionally setting a tree on fire or something. But this was, and this is such a liberal soccer mom phenomenon. Like, maybe the conservatives do this, but this is definitely a thing within the political left where they like to have this.
So people died.
Yeah,
people died in this.
There are some deaths from the fires. I don't know which ones are attributable to this particular thing.
This one in particular.
But it's,
well, how awful for them. So imagine that child growing up.
Jesus.
You know, what are they going to call him? Hey, Mom, I thought my name was John. Why do they call me Sparky? That's a long story, son. You have to wait till you're older and we'll tell you. Yeah,
you can get really dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a thing in the news that is going on. And some of my
a little girl says, "Mommy, why did you name me Embers?"
Because you glow. Yeah.
Why did you name my horse Flicker? I made a movie about that. I love that movie, Flicker.
A horse about a movie named Flicker?
Speaking of entertainment, I want you to know I'm now moving ahead in my third season of Homeland, and I'm thrilled that Damian Lewis's character has continued to evolve and is still integral to it. And the complexity of it is just so fascinating. And the fact that she has some mental health issues is she's bipolar. And when she's convinced, of course, when she takes her medication, that she's not as sharp as she would be to be able to catch the bad guys. And there's been some experience of that, so she can't help but not take her meds.
What a great conflict.
It's thrilling.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And she's also promiscuous, which is not unrelated, I would imagine, to her bipolar.
I would not imagine, yes.
Diagnosis, anyway. But lithium's a bitch. Lithium's a bitch, man. I mean, that shit knocks you out.
What's interesting about lithium is it's the only medication that is an element in the periodic table. All other medication is a compound of some molecules, but lithium is itself its own atom. And I think we still don't really understand the process in which, obviously,
Where is it found? Where's lithium found?
It's a metal. I don't know. It's found around. But we don't really understand how it interacts with the brain in the way that it does so successfully to control bipolar. Where's lithium found? Where is lithium?
Lithium's found in Lithuania.
Lithuania? No. Essential for lithium metal is isolated electrolytically from a mixture of lithium chloride and potassium chloride. The nucleus of lithium atom verges on instability, since two stable lithium isotopes found in nature have among the lowest binding energies per... yeah. So...
Wait, what's that?
We got to the end of that sentence.
You want a ticket to Lithuania? Isn't that Lithuania where... Oh, shit, the character on Taxi...
Yeah.
What's... Come on. Jim Carrey played Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
Where his character in Taxi came from was Lithuania. I'll tell you what, I saw a good part of that movie, again, not too long ago, and was so impressed.
You're talking about the Jim Carrey man that walked on the moon or whatever?
Yeah. What's it called? Moon...
Man on the Moon.
Man on the Moon. And I've got to ask, it's been some time since I've asked, but you haven't yet seen Moonstruck. This has got to be your homework.
I think for episode 100.
And Nicolas Cage.
I think for episode 100, I watched.
Cage. It's a good 75th anniversary. Our first 75th anniversary.
Yeah, but
you got a lot going. I know you got a lot. But anyway, Homeland season 3, and so this funny thing happened on Showtime when I used to move my cursor and click all series. It would have 30 or 40 of them, and now it's only showing 15.
Ooh.
And in order to find and it was like, why are you restricting this? And so I went to my library and recently seen movies. found Homeland and then went from there. But I didn't like the change. I don't like change.
UI changes.
I want to double click.
Yep.
Changes.
Yeah, UI changes are terrible. Everyone hates them. So, yeah, that's a good series. I think they're still making them. I think they're like up to season 8 now. I stopped around season 5 or 6, I think.
Oh yeah.
But it does get pretty good. But there's only so much espionage writing you can do to continue a story, where you don't end up with this problem of, oh, the good guy has caught this one bad guy, and the bad guy says, and they think this is the boss of everything, and the bad guy says, haha, I'll never tell you who my real boss is, and then they like crunch on a cyanide tablet or something, and it's this perpetual treadmill of conspiracy that I get tired of. But I think it's like part of that show writing influences how so many people are willing to believe in QAnon and shit like that. Of, oh, clearly the people that appear to be in power aren't really the ones that are holding the strings, because I've watched I've watched X-Files and I've watched Burn Notice and I've watched all these other CIA TV shows.
Homeland gets into that category. Do you?
Not yet on season 3.
I think what you've described is the repetitious nature of the narrative, and the ever-present pathology that just continues is in fact true about why the series would be so fucking just Jesus already.
Right.
But it's also true to life, which is why at this point we say, when we think about those things, no, I don't know, what are you going to do? It just goes on and on. It isn't any different now than it was when we were kids.
Yeah,
that whole Middle East war zone,
okay, so there's
against the world, and
okay, there's one point of view where, yes, if you kill whoever the current leader of the uprising is, for sure another person will come up to take their place. Yes. But what I'm complaining about is in all of these TV shows, 24 was really bad about this, because in 24 they have 24 episodes to fill, where the guy that you think is the super bad guy on episode 4, he says, oh, I'm just a lackey for this other big. We have this idea that there's this big structure that is controlling everything, and I think the real world is not so much like that. I think if you do,
it's more chaotic.
It's more chaotic, and if you do decapitate an organization, someone else will rise up to take that place. But the leader that you kill is not just one in a series of a deeper structure. That there's actually really one bad guy out there that is controlling everything, which I think is what the TV shows teach us. Which is why I think people believe that, oh yeah, Mitch McConnell looks like he's in control, but there's really 7 levels of puppet master behind him.
He was seen in a popular night spot actually ordering cooked child, which they had to explain it wasn't on the menu. So this QAnon thing is true with him. He actually ordered a cooked, I think he specified a 4-year-old. Not sure.
I prefer my 4-year-olds medium rare, honestly.
And the thing is that in order for him to put that order in, which is why it's strange that he was caught doing it,
right?
That he had to first order as an appetizer a pizza.
Right.
And then when he got the pizza, he cut it in a certain kind of angle and he put it together almost like hieroglyphics on his plate, on the big pizza plate.
That's how you order the 4-year-olds.
And that's how, yes.
Right.
And to the people who don't know, but there are people who know.
Right.
There are people who know, and they're the ones who told me.
And they speak really cryptically, too, which I think is smart.
Oh, God.
Because you can't just come right out and say it. You have to be like, the night before dawn is 7:20. And that's the people that know what I'm talking about clearly know what I just said, but the rest of people are just...
Wait, the night before dawn is at 7:20? Let's talk that through a little bit. The night before dawn is at 7:20. I have to confess, I'm one of the people that doesn't know what that means. But I don't. The night before the dawn is at 7:20. Is that what time it is there? No, that's not what time it is there. Why are you saying that?
It's code, man. It means that we need Trump for 12 more years. And then we can finally get to Judgment Day, where we can all reveal our genders in an explosion.
Oh, Lithuania, how I long for your green streets. Oh, Lithuania, how I long for your broad streets. When I go there in the morning, I'll fly a bumpy flight, I know, but I'll land in Lithuania. It's a place that I've grown to love. That's where I get my lithium. It's the wonderfulest drug. Makes me feel like I'm nothing, like a big old fucking slug. Will take me back to Lithuania. I don't want to stay here no more. I got to get back to Lithuania. That is all I'm living for.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
God bless you, Lithuania.
I'm out, man.
See you next week, bro.
I'm out.
Stay safe. That does it for episode number 75. You can find the show notes with links to things that we discussed and photos of Dennis's lean-to shed project that he's working on at happyhour.fm/075. You can help us build this podcast by going to patreon.com/happyhour and give us a couple bucks. And as always, stay safe out there, be good, and we'll see you next week.